Hey guys, welcome back to What I Wish I Knew Sooner. Today we're joined by Hanan Tantush. She is an award-winning adaptive fashion designer, Drapers 30 Under 30, and founder of Intotum, which is a pioneering adaptive clothing brand.
So Hanan's work is amazing because she works with the disabled community and it's making garments to make sure that they're functional, they're comfortable and they're stylish. So in the last year, she's won so many awards. She's literally just won the NatWest Accelerator Pitch, which was 70,000 guys, which is amazing.
Hanan, it's so nice to have you on the pod.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. For people that are meeting you for the first time, could you describe what you do and the mission behind it?
Absolutely. So my name's Hanan, I'm the founder of Intotum, and what we do at Intotum is make comfortable, functional and fashionable clothing for the disabled community. And really the whole point of Intotum is being able to find and buy clothing off the rack, as it were, off our site, without having to alter or change it, and it's made specifically to your needs and to your additional needs you may have as a disabled person, and we do that through a co-design process as well with the disabled community.
Wow,
That's amazing.
And from what I understand, your idea came from your grandfather's experience and that, I guess, shaped your passion for Intotum.
1,000%. I think it's often the case with founders that it starts from something personal.
Yeah.
And that was definitely the case for me. I had been making clothing since I was like 11 for myself, but I didn't know this term adaptive. I didn't know it was a thing. I just made my own clothing because I didn't like the way other clothing fit or felt. And then when I watched my granddad when I was about 16 going through cancer, he had to get a stoma and a urostomy bag. And it really affected what he could wear or what he could buy that felt comfortable. Because the stoma bag where it sits, and his is actually positioned also quite high because he's had so many surgeries and complications in his life, and so they had to fit it in a slightly different position as well. And it's kind of right here where your waistband is, and everything was kind of pushing on that bag, and he was worried it was going to burst or worried that if he moved it was going to shift or something. And he shouldn't have to worry about his clothing. He should be worrying about recovering from cancer and recovering from surgery. And all of the advice was just kind of wear pajamas, wear jogging bottoms. And he didn't want to do that. And he definitely didn't want to wear them out of the house. So he decided to just stop leaving the house, really. And that was the first instance of me kind of seeing how clothing can hinder you to the point of not wanting to go outside. And also the time that I discovered adaptive clothing, because that was when I went searching for a solution and found the very, very limited and medical options that were really not giving.
So you feel like that whole experience obviously made you feel super, I guess, like
You had to do something.
Yeah, you
like
had
compelled.
to do something.
to.
Exactly.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think compelled's the perfect word, because when you see a problem, there's two kinds of people really, and I'm definitely the fixer rather than the ignorer. And I at first tried to fix it by finding the solution out there for him, and when there wasn't one, I decided I had to make the solution myself. And that really is what started, Intotum, and me discovering this whole world of disability and this term adaptive that kind of made me go, okay, so that's what I've been doing, making my own clothing, and that's what I can do to help other people. And that's really started my journey into adaptive long before it ever became Intotum or a business.
Yeah. So is your granddad your biggest customer right now?
He's definitely my biggest fan, I'll tell you that one. Yeah, he is. I mean, he tells everybody about Intotum.
He's the inspiration.
So
Why not?
I literally was speaking with him yesterday, and I was telling a guy at swimming about it, and I was trying to show him your website and all of this, and I love it. It's so great that my family are such huge supporters, but especially my granddad.
That's so sweet. Yeah. So what was it about the clothing options that were available that just made you feel like you had to do something? What do you feel like fashion brands are getting wrong?
I think the first instance is that there just isn't any options is really the case. And especially when I started up into adaptive clothing and into Intotum, there was nothing. And it's really great that we're seeing more options up and coming now, but still they are really basic. We see a lot of people just putting zips into things or clothing looking still really quite medical. And the key feedback I get from my customers consistently is we want to look like everybody else. Yeah. We want clothing that looks like it's on the high street, looks like what my friends have, looks like what's in everyone else's wardrobes. And so I feel adaptive fashion is constantly missing that mark. And that's why I started Intotum, because I really wanted to balance the idea of having that comfort and the function that you need with the fashion and the style, because ultimately I'm a fashion designer that's turned into a business person, you know. I didn't enter this from a medical background, and I think a lot of people that have started in adaptive have entered it from maybe the perspective of somebody trying to make their clothing more functional.
Yeah.
And then they miss the whole side of what it actually looks like.
Yeah, because I think fashion, it can give you so much confidence, can't it? And everyone deserves to feel that way and to get the pride of looking good and being put together.
100%.
My cousin is Turner syndrome, and I just think like what you're doing is amazing for people like her, because she loves clothes. She literally, every time she goes out, she wants to buy it, but at the end of the day, it just isn't made for her. So yeah, I love like what you're doing.
Thank you.
So inspirational.
Yeah,
just so
I appreciate that, and I think that's, you know, the experience that either, you know, 1 in 4 people has a disability in the UK. This isn't something niche. This is the largest minority community in the UK, well, globally actually, and so many people either have had that experience themselves or have a family member that's had that experience. And so every single time I talk about adaptive clothing, people sort of go, oh yeah, oh I've never thought about that, or oh yeah, I do know someone and she moans about her clothing, she struggles with this, that. Oh, that does make sense why you'd need adaptive clothing.
Yeah.
And so if it makes so much sense, you know, why don't we have more of it? And that's really what I'm pushing for with Intotum.
Wow. Is it okay if we take a step back? Because I'm curious, did you teach yourself to sew? Like, how did you get into fashion design originally?
Yeah, I think the original step of sewing was, I've always wanted to be a fashion designer, like forever basically. And I decided to I wanted to sew. I begged, I think is the better word, for a sewing machine around about the age of 10, 11. And I just kind of started teaching myself a lot of it. And then as I got a bit more into it, my mum was like, okay, like I can see you really want this. So I started to go to kind of sewing classes, and it was all women that are doing quilting and things after work, and then just me, like a 12-year-old, like, hi,
That's so nice.
in a class full of mums. But I loved it, and I stayed there until I moved to London for university. I was there until I was 18 because I just loved all those women, and I'd go on a Wednesday night and sew with them. But that was really how I kind of started to love sewing. But it was definitely more something that I decided to teach myself when it came to making clothing. And then definitely by the time I got to university to study women's wear, I really had that passion and love and knowledge of clothing, and was able to gain all that technical knowledge whilst I was at university that was necessary to actually be customising the clothing.
That's so interesting.
Can I ask you a quick question as well?
Yeah, of course.
You know Intotum?
Yeah.
What is the meaning behind that name?
So Intotum is actually Latin for all together. So Intotum previously has had different names, and I was trying to come up with them when I was at university, when I was launching the business. But none of them really felt right. I think people always put the word adaptive into their business and things, and I didn't really feel it captured the essence of what I was trying to build. And then I came across the term Intotum, and it means all together or as one, or also it means unbroken. And I love that so much, because I think that really encapsulates everything that Intotum is about, and about community, because this is a community mission, and this isn't just my mission. This is something that we're all trying to build together. And so I think the idea that this is all together runs through, you know, the entire business, including the name.
I love that. It's so nice that it has so much meaning.
Thank you.
So obviously you launched Intotum in 2023, was it?
Yes, yeah.
What was the very first step that you took in order to turn the idea into a business?
I think I started trying to turn the idea into a business more like 22, maybe even 2021, because I had done internships, I'd worked for other designers, and I was quickly realizing that there wasn't going to be a job for me after graduation. I was realizing that people didn't take adaptive fashion seriously. I'd had a lot of people tell me it was too niche, or kind of try and direct me to drop it, both within and outside of education. And to me, that wasn't something I was going to do. I had already seen the impacts, the positive impacts it was having for people through some of the custom orders I was doing whilst I was at university, and the development I was doing, because I basically turned every collection into adaptive, no matter what the brief was. And so it was really as I was approaching my final year of university that I decided I was going to have to turn this into a business if I wanted to see the impact that the disabled community deserves, quite frankly. And so I decided, okay, what can I do to learn about business? Because I don't know anything about business. The only business I'd ever done was I did business at GCSE, which I don't think really counts. No. So I decided to start attending basically every business course and things that I could. And my university was great for that. Actually, they have a really great graduate scheme there, and I can only really thank them for all of the support they've given. But I started to attend panel talks or even webinars, and I was writing a business plan, trying to decide who my customer is, all of these things, but also looking ahead at other graduate businesses and what path they'd taken to try and direct me. And that's when I discovered pitching competitions and saw that this was a method that a lot of people had used to fund the business, because that was a big thing, a big question almost looming over me of how am I going to fund this idea, because I don't come from money. I didn't have any money to spare. I mean, I worked in retail alongside university, and so I was spending all of my money on fabric, and I needed money to fund the samples and development of this, but also then to turn this into a business. And so first of all, I went about getting my collection, just as it was, sponsored, which was the first step. And I was able to work with a really great fabric company called Minerva, actually, they're based in the Northwest as well. And they really believed in the mission, and they sponsored it, the original fabrics that I made all those first collection pieces from. And then with that first collection, I was able to actually start pitching as a business. And really, it was just me. How old was I? 21?
That's amazing.
Yeah, 2021, standing there with pieces of clothing I'd been sewing all night, basically, saying, so we're going to change the world, and hoping that people believed me, really. And, obviously, with hindsight, I can say that I meant it, obviously, and I've been able to do it and achieve it, but there's still lots to go. But at the time, I really didn't necessarily know what I was doing. It was a lot of blind faith in myself, I'd say. And it's kind of, you have to have that momentum and intense self-belief. And once I'd kind of got a few people behind me or a few people backing me, I started to believe in myself more and go, okay, this really could be something. And when I was starting getting that really great feedback off people in the charities and the day centres and things that I was visiting with my samples to design them with, I started to see immediately how much impact this could have if I truly was able to scale it. So that was kind of the long and short of how I really started it before I'd even graduated. Was just planning, prepping, trying, and that all led into my very first pitching competition.
Was that the NatWest one?
No, so my very first pitching competition was the Mayor's Entrepreneur competition, and so I won that in May 2023.
Wow. Amazing.
And that was the first time I'd ever pitched for an audience. I was so nervous. I had actually almost quit the entire competition. And I only remembered this recently because it had been so long ago, and you kind of, you put your rose-tinted glasses on and think, oh yeah, well, I won it, it's all good. Yeah. Spoilers, I won. But at the time, it was the kind of pitch practice prep session the week before. And I was so overwhelmed with everything I was doing at that time. I was trying to graduate, trying to write my dissertation, trying to build a business at the same time, all as just me in my, you know, one bedroom in my flat in Stratford, and I was cutting samples on the floor of our kitchen at like 3 a.m. and having arguments with my flatmates because they were trying to sleep and I was sewing. When I got to this pitch prep and they were like, so you're gonna have to just stand in front of us and pitch, you know, we've given you the advice on how to write a script, now go for it, you know, tell us what you've written. And I just couldn't do it. I literally, I think I burst into tears actually, because I was so nervous. I really hated the idea of standing in front of so many people. And I just truly didn't think that I had it in me.
Yeah, it's the self-belief that comes in.
Yeah, it really was. And I think unless you are strong in your character, strong in your belief of the business, but also are looking after yourself as a person, then you definitely can't, you know, look after the business.
Yeah.
And I really had to kind of, in that time between then and the pitch, I actually walked out of that session. I didn't end up pitching properly. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it for the final one. And that's when people see me pitch and it'll either go well or it won't. And so I just kind of hunkered down in that week and practiced because I've never been shy, you know, I haven't, but I've always been shy to present my work. And at that time period, I think because it was so much pressure and stress, and it wasn't just launching a business, it was my graduate collection, it was 3 years worth of work into, you know, 10 pieces of clothing, that I has put so much pressure on myself that I needed to step away from it and take a step back and actually just realised I was pitching a business. If it didn't work, there'd always be a future pitch. But yeah, it did work.
Yeah,
so that was great.
Yeah.
It did work. And I think I just kind of, when I pitch, I really get just into it and I kind of zone into almost, I feel like I'm on another plane. I don't know what I'm saying when I'm pitching and I just kind of do it. I'm like, I hope it's mentally in my head, the script, but I really just go for it. And I don't even remember what I've said afterwards.
Do you just like zone everyone out and
Yes,
just go for it?
Fully, like, you know, some people say like, oh, picture the crowd like naked, don't they? I just don't see the crowd. I'm like, okay, you're not there. I'm just literally talking at no one.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I'm able to do it, because otherwise I'm so nervous. And I'm even up to the pitch I did last month, I'm shaking before it.
Yeah.
But when I get on that stage, nobody has
just
any
block it all
idea
out.
because I just, you know, I'm like, I have to embody confidence.
But at the same time, I think the reason you present so bloody well is because you're so passionate about
Yeah,
what
you really
do.
believe in it.
You know it to a T. You have it sparked from your grandfather's experience. Like, you just know it off the back of your hand.
Yeah, and I think that is, you know, in terms of pitching, I've now pitched so many times and watched so many pitches that when anytime anybody asks for advice, I'm like, I've got a list, you know, of all the different things I can say, because it's just a case of the main thing really is confidence, but you've got to know your pitch, you've got to have it down. And I always say to people that the question time is actually more important than the pitch, because that is where, just like you've said, they find out if you really know that business. And when you're in the trenches building it, you get to know your business. Yeah, when you're on your floor cutting samples out, you get to know that business. And so I think that's often where people kind of win it or lose it. And I'd say from my experience, that's where I've won it or lost it, because those question time is when they really decipher who's passionate about this business, who cares about this business, who's going to take it all the way, versus who's been able to learn a script.
Yeah.
Do the questions ever throw you off? Because I guess you have no idea what they're going to ask.
You have literally no idea, which I think is why people are most nervous for the question time. I'm more nervous for the pitch because I think when I get thrown off, if I miss a slide or something, I really struggle to kind of bring it back together. And that has happened to me. And from an outside perspective, you know, I often have somebody watching in the crowd. They're like, oh no, you did fine, like you couldn't tell. But for me, because I've stopped for maybe 0.3 seconds, I felt it. Yeah. And so I do feel a bit like rocky after that. But in the question time, I'm always like, well, it's just like this conversation we're having. You're asking me questions about my business. I'm going to answer confidently and tell you the truth. And quite frankly, that's all it is. And if you can't tell the truth about your business, or you're not proud with the facts of your business, then, maybe try again. So that is, for me, is why I obviously have some things that sometimes I want to say. And so you can always spin a question. But I really find that I'm able to kind of go into the question time knowing that I'm proud of what I've built, I'm proud of what I've achieved. We've done so much, and I know that it helps our customers, it helps our community. Like, let me talk about it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and I think that whole helping other people comes into play a lot here, because when I look at you, I can see it's all about the people, it's all about the community, it's all
1000%.
about them, and I love that, because that's what it is about, right? When you create a business, it's about them.
Yeah, because you mentioned at the start that you almost pulled out and gave up on that pitch.
Yeah.
But I guess like your North Star and your guiding principle is helping people.
100,000%.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think people kind of pull me up on, maybe on the business side, is, yeah, but this is a business, so surely you're thinking about profits and things like that. Of course, I have to balance the books, you know, but I never entered this thinking, oh, I can make a lot of money out of this. I've spotted a great gap in the market. That's absolutely was not the attitude coming into the business or at the core of the business. And that's, I think, what makes it so, different as a business is we are social purpose. And I know lots of other business owners, both social ventures and not. And as a social venture, I think I would say those that own social ventures are some of the nicest people I know. And I think they're also more determined than other business owners. Because I think when your only motivation is yourself or money, quite frankly, you're not going to do as much. I just don't think you are. You're not going to have as much of an impact on the people or the planet. And all the social ventures that I know, we're all striving to help other people.
Yeah.
And that means, I think when you have that motivation of, and you can actually see it reflected back at you, you can see those positive reviews, see that positive impact back at you, it's way more motivation, and also means that we're all striving for much more.
Yeah, I can see that.
So obviously your clothes are functional, fashionable and comfortable. So how do you balance all those three when you're creating your clothes?
It's a process of balancing the function, comfort and fashion, because, as I say, a lot of adaptive clothing will focus on one or two, but definitely not all three. And so they are the three core pillars of Intotum. And they have to be present in every single piece of clothing that we develop, that we put out. And we balance them really by, first of all, ensuring that we're solving a problem with the clothing. So we ask our customers, we work with our customers to say, okay, what is a problem that you're facing? And of course, the problem is not that person's disability. It's that maybe the trousers are digging into their stomach when they're sat in them, or that they really struggle with buttons. And so I then need to come up with a solution that solves that problem. But I then also need to make sure it's a solution that's comfortable. And so I kind of work in the function first and then the comfort. And so that comes into the materiality and how does it feel? How does it feel to wear? How does it feel to adjust? How does it feel to put on? How difficult is it to take off? And one of the key things, I think a lot of adaptive clothing only focuses on potentially how easy it is to put on, but they don't consider that you then have to wear that piece of clothing all day.
Yeah.
So you need it to be comfortable, you want it to be soft on the skin, and we also make all of our clothing sensory friendly, and we test all of the materials. We test how they wash, how they crease, how they feel on your skin, how we don't want anything dyeing anybody. There's so many pieces of clothing out there where I just see them and I think that's a load of crap. And that is absolutely not what we're doing at Intotum. And even down to, does the fabric make too much noise? We think about all of it, and so we work with a lot of different people, including test groups, focus groups, user groups, to test all of the fabrics and the fit, as well as the functionality of all of our pieces. And then I think, okay, what's the aesthetic here? How do we take this function that we've designed, perhaps it's magnets in the clothing, like, you know, my top I'm wearing right now. I was thinking, how can I make this easier for somebody to wear? How can I make it easier for someone to put on? And so we put magnets in it.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
it opens like this with magnets. Yeah, and you wouldn't know, and that's the whole point. But then I thought, okay, well, how do we have the aesthetic of this top? And so we bring in elements like this so that it looks like a piece that you would love to have in your wardrobe.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And there's so many pieces that I have in my wardrobe of gathered clothing, and I knew that I wanted it to look and align with what's on the high street and what's in people's wardrobes, but still needs to have that function and that comfort. And so this top all started because we were working with a customer that was struggling to find clothing that they could take off the back of their shoulders because they have a chest port. And so when they're hooked up with their chest port, because all tops don't open fully off, they would then be stuck in the clothing for the rest of the day, and sometimes have to go to sleep in what they were wearing that day if they were still hooked up on their monitors. And so we decided we needed clothing that could come fully off.
That's so clever.
And it, you know, that's how it all starts. And so it's a long process. You know, this top started from original designs of a dress, actually, back in, I think it was over 12 months ago now that we started development for even just ideas and sketches. And it has so many iterations until it becomes something that you actually want to wear.
So did you like do a lot of research to go, how can I make this super easy for her or him or her to take off? And you just kind of like went magnets, like the idea just came to you, and it was just, because I've never thought to do that, but that's incredible. And it's so simple but incredible.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've done as an adaptive designer is I kind of, when I was starting up, I did a lot of focus in specific areas. So I did a lot of specific focus on fit, and then a lot of focus on fastenings. And so I already know now that when somebody suggests something to me, I'm immediately thinking, okay, well, could we use that? Could we use that magnet? Could we use this zip? Could we use that Velcro? Because it's almost like a Rolodex in my brain of all these different fastenings that we've tried and tested. And anything new that comes out, we're always first to order it and see how that could work in our clothing. I remember I was actually sat on a family holiday in Italy, and I got an advert for a new magnetic zip, and I literally screamed out loud. And my mum was like, what's going on? What's wrong? And I was like, oh, look at this zip. Because I knew what amazing impacts that could have for people, how helpful and useful that would be. Because rather than fiddling to fasten the zip together, they just click.
Whoa.
And then you can pull up the zip. And so I immediately got on the phone to YKK and was like, I need this zip. How do I get hold of it? They were like, well, it's not even in the UK. I was like, I need one. And so, yeah, my graduate collection actually had those zips in, and I had some custom order pieces made because YKK helped me so much on it. And when they knew how much I was just not going to drop these zips, basically, that they were able to get me some that I could put into the collection. And then when I actually released our first launch, we also had magnetic zips in them. And so, yeah, the features like magnets are so helpful because once you see the applications and that they can have use, you can start to place them in different places really as well on the clothing. And so the original version of this top was poppers, but when you were trying to put the poppers together, they're really quite difficult with your fingers. And one of the things I was doing is I was, thinking, okay, well, how is this going to, if you're trying to push them together, you're then having to push it into the skin, for instance, is that going to cause, pain? And I also had people test it and try it out, and especially people with arthritis in their fingers really struggled to push that together, or if you've got limited dexterity. Whereas with the magnets, because they are drawn to each other, even if you're somebody that has like reduced dexterity in your fingers or your hands, or people with a limb difference, we're all able to shut the top because of the magnets. And so I therefore was like, yeah, we're going to go ahead with magnets and leave the popper idea behind.
I love that. So you talk a lot about designing with the community rather than for the community. What does that collaboration process actually look like in practical terms? And do you have any specific examples where you've taken on board feedback and changed the design based on that?
Yeah, I think the process for us looks like, originally it was me approaching people. And when I first started this, it was definitely me approaching people and seeing what the problems were, kind of at the forefront, I guess. What were the loudest or most obvious problems? And then it became more, as I developed the clothing and as I've actually released pieces, what are people coming to me and saying? And so now we don't have to do as much outreach, but we still do. I've absolutely not reduced any of the outreach we do, but we also have so many people coming to us with suggestions, ideas, or problems they're facing with their clothing. And then it's a case of, okay, let us go away as a team and use our knowledge as designers and as adaptive designers specifically to try and ideate solutions, and then we feed those back. So it really starts in that sketching and really base sample stage of, okay, we might try out it in really small scale, or try out an element of fastening, maybe how we'd close a trouser, and then we take that to people and start to see how that works, and then we can build that into items of clothing. Right. And then test the fabrics with them, and then test what colours they want to see it in as well. Like even down to this top, we were between two shades of this colour and like a more red colour. And so we just did an Instagram poll, and like over 100 people voted on it within like a few hours. And wow. I needed to get back to the manufacturers like by lunchtime, and I was like, I can't pick a colour. And so I just immediately Instagram poll, what are people thinking? Yeah. Everyone voted for this one. I was like, okay, there we are.
And people have spoken. Love to be part of the process as well.
1,000%, and I just don't see why you ever wouldn't ask your customer, quite frankly. You know, so much of fashion never ever is tested by the customer, and because I've seen that kind of behind the curtain, as I've helped other designers work for other designers, I've done, you know, the traditional route through women's wear design at university. We're taught to make the clothing without ever asking anybody, and we make it to one standard size, one standard customer. And the first time that a customer ever tries the clothing on normally is that fashion week debut, or actually, you know, for the likes of the high street, it's literally often when it gets to the hanger, gets to the rail in the shop, is the first time that someone's put it on, which is crazy. And so we make sure that someone's putting it on at literally every stage and testing it and giving feedback, because then we can tweak it and make it better. And in terms of then kind of reflecting on designs we've put out, for instance, we put out a trench coat, and that's one of our best selling pieces, is a seated trench coat, which is backless for wheelchair users. And so many people love that coat, and that had hundreds of iterations before it was ever released. But then when I started posting about it, videos about it, and customers started buying it, we also started getting feedback of, could you do one with a hood? And I was like, yeah, okay. And I'd gone for a very traditional trench coat style, and I would say from our research, 90+% of trench coats don't come with a hood. Yeah. I think in the UK, we're so used to trench coats, and then you hold an umbrella. Yeah. But if you're in a wheelchair and you're somebody that doesn't have an electric wheelchair, so you have to actually push yourself, you don't have a spare hand to hold an umbrella. So, of course, we can add a hood. And so for our new season that's coming out in, I think, about 5 weeks away we are now, there are hoods on our trench coats, but they're also removable with magnets. Because you don't need to have a hood if you don't want a hood, but if you want one, it's there. Yeah. And so we want to be able to respond to feedback, but also provide options so that the customers that don't want it or do want it can have both.
Wow, you've really thought about everything, haven't you?
It literally is dedicated to every single customer out there as
1,000%.
So adaptive fashion is still underrepresented in the industry. What were the biggest challenges you faced breaking into the space?
I think, first of all, trying to break into fashion is hard anyway. Unless you have maybe connections or a background or family history in fashion, which I absolutely don't, you're always trying to push through a really oversaturated space, but then especially add in doing something that is seen as niche or seen as, you know, not really part of fashion is kind of the feedback I got. You are really pushing against a brick wall a lot of the time. And so in the early stages, I was trying to follow the traditional fashion pipeline that a lot of my peers were taking, as well as we were all graduating, and getting to fashion weeks and things like that. And we have done fashion week twice now, but I also quickly realised that that's actually probably not the space for Intotum. We don't need to be necessarily in the crowd of fashion. I need to be where my customer is, and then we can all collectively push back into fashion. And so breaking into the fashion industry, I don't think necessarily is needed as Intotum, because although we are a fashion forward business, we are ultimately a clothing brand with a purpose. And as long as my customer finds me and knows me, that's all I really care about. So I kind of stopped caring so much what fashion cares about and started caring more about the people that wanted to support me cared about, which is, you know, as I say, the people that are in social purpose businesses or that sort of community of social impact have been really supportive of Intotum. And I know so many fellow founders, but also the other founders in Adaptive, we're all massively supportive of each other, which is lovely. And so we've got our own group in fashion. And I think that's what a lot of us do anyway. A lot of designers go find people that they relate to or people that they'd like to be like and create their own kind of collectives. And so it also probably was hard for me trying to make it in fashion at first because there weren't other people doing adaptive design that they could go, oh yeah, you're like such and such.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been a shift in the industry in terms of them recognising adaptive fashion as a real kind of, not subgenre, but an art, a skill, a practice within fashion. Just as we have hat making or menswear, we have adaptive design. And I think, especially as we keep advocating for the fact anybody can wear adaptive clothing, the industry started to go, oh, okay. And I think as more people become more aware of disability inclusion in general, all industries become more aware of it, including fashion. So yeah, there's definitely, they're opening their eyes to adaptive design and to inclusion, but there is lots to be done still. I definitely think that.
Are you noticing more and more brands popping up then?
Yeah, there's definitely, I think the high street are starting to take note of adaptive design, which is nice. And people say, oh, well, you know, oh, well, such and such is doing adaptive design now. What do you think of that? I think it's great. I think it's great. The more adaptive design we see, the better it is for everybody, because nobody shops from one place.
Yeah.
You know, I often wear Intotum mixed with other brands, and I know my customers are doing the same. So of course, we just want options for people. Of course, I want people to find Intotum, but if people find adaptive design, then they'll probably find Intotum.
True, yeah.
So, you know, it all leads towards the same goal.
Yeah, same purpose, yeah. So you've recently expanded into sportswear. What inspired that move, and how do you feel like it connects to Intotum's mission?
So sportswear felt like a natural progression, because really what I've been doing in the last year, especially in Intotum, is thinking, how does my customer live? What do they do in their day-to-day? What do they need my clothing for? Because I think when you take this holistic approach, you make much better clothing, you make much better products, and you really want to relate to your customer. And so the first of all step was really, okay, well, my customer goes to work every day. My customer goes to the shops, they go to the gym. Okay, I need to serve them in all of these areas. So that really helped me define and refine my new collection. And we definitely kind of stepped back and thought, okay, where are they wearing this? To the office, they're wearing this to the pub, they're wearing this to the shops. And I made pieces that you could wear to all of those places. But then the next step was, okay, well, what if they are wearing it to the gym or wearing it outside on a nature hike? Currently, Intotum doesn't serve that. And so that's why I felt we needed to enter that area. But the real push to enter sportswear came from watching the Paralympic Games last summer. Because I think when you watch something that is, I mean, just huge, obviously, the Paralympic Games are watched by millions, billions probably, that you expect to see, as well as seeing the, you know, upper echelon of athletes across the planet, you'd expect to see the upper echelon of adaptive clothing on those athletes, and you don't. And there is definitely efforts that have been made in recent years to have the uniforms be a bit more adaptive. And I really respect that they're trying to do that. But a lot of the clothing is still exactly the same as what they give the Olympians. And so Paralympians and Olympians have very different needs, just as you wouldn't give netball and, a 100-meter sprint the same uniform.
Yeah.
You wouldn't give a para-athlete and an athlete the same uniform. But we are a lot of the time. And when I watched the Paralympic Games, I saw a lot of people, especially with limb differences, that had hair bobbles tying up sleeves.
Oh, wow.
Or people that just were kind of trying to make do or tie or scrunch up their uniform. And that's not on, really.
No.
When we've got people on a global stage, they should have the uniform that they need and that works for them. And so that's why I really thought, okay, well, if not even our Paralympians are getting necessarily the best sportswear for them, I've spoken to so many of them now through our research, and they're telling me, for training, I have to get there an hour early to get ready because I struggle so much with getting my leggings on.
Oh my God.
People's time is precious, no matter what they're doing, and you shouldn't have to waste time on getting dressed. And that's the whole ethos of Intotum. But especially when you want to do something like working out, like going outside, that's supposed to be the time that you relax or you step away. And you shouldn't have to be concerned with your clothing during that time. So that was really the push for me to go, okay, sports is definitely what we're doing next. And, with that NatWest prize and with kind of the funding we've built up there, that is where we're focusing it, because we're only in those initial stages right now in that research and development that I've talked about for sportswear. But the hope is that, hopefully by this time next year, I'll be talking all about our new sportswear collection. And how that's positively impacting people.
I feel like with the sportswear clothes as well, because it also runs into the fact that if they're wearing something that's made for them, it will help them perform better and feel more confident. Because if you feel good in yourself, then But if you're wearing bobbles around you and you feel like you can't move, and you're just not going to perform the way that you want to.
No.
So that's really frustrating.
1,000%, And I think that's the ethos of all clothing. If you feel confident in your clothing, you'll be your best self. And so you need to have your best clothing every day. You should be able to just, open your wardrobe up and pick out a piece that makes you go, yeah, okay, I feel like me. But you definitely don't feel like you when it takes you so long to get dressed.
Yeah. Do you think there's a partnership with Team GB on the cards?
I'm going to fingers crossed, I'm going to manifest. But we're definitely talking to a lot of exciting people about the potential of this sportswear and of this research and project, because I think it can have so much impact, in grassroots clubs, in semi-pro athletes. We've got people that do CrossFit professionally that we're working with us on this. We're actually partnering with a few different Paralympians on this. We've also working with somebody who, at the moment, Nicole, she's in training camp for GB Para Taekwondo, and she doesn't like the uniform she's wearing right now, and so all of these things will accumulate towards something that can be better for everybody. And whether it is just clothing that you can wear to the gym or it is Team GB, I know it's going to have a real positive difference.
Definitely will. We wanted to touch back on the pitching. So you've been incredible at securing funding from the Mayor's Award
Thank you.
To NatWest. Could you tell us a bit more about your approach to pitching, where you find these opportunities, how you go about it?
A lot of the pitches that I have done, I found originally through, just literally like Googling, how can I raise money for a business? And starting to see what other people were doing. But as soon as I discovered this world of pitching, it's almost like its own community in itself. And it is quite funny. You turn up to a lot of these pitches and you know the people in the room. And there's so many businesses that I've pitched against multiple times now. Okay. Because we're all almost, you're in a circuit a bit sometimes of like this pitch, that pitch, that pitch. Because a lot of the major banks have a pitch, or especially when I was first starting out, like there were so many graduate competitions that I did, that, you know, I was against almost the same university startups a lot of the time. But yeah, I found them to just through kind of as well looking at what other founders had done. I'm lucky enough that I know a lot of founders that are older than me, that are further along in their journey than me, that I could say, oh, you know, have you tried this pitch or that pitch? Or they might say to me, oh, I did this one. You should look, I think the applications are opening up soon. So that was kind of how I found those first few. And then past that, sometimes they approached me, you know, because they want to have, you know, exciting businesses to pitch, and they don't, you know, there's no preferential treatment there. A lot of us get told, oh, like this competition's there, like if you're open to it, you should apply. But, you know, that we still have to go through the whole process. We still have to put a lot of work into our application, and then hope we get through to the next stage and do our pitch deck. And some of these competitions have like 5 stages, and, you know, a lot of people just see the last one.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of work that goes into them. And I know a lot of people that use outside help for it as well. Like I found out that there's like a whole subgenre of people that are like application writers and things like that, which I didn't even know. But I've written every single one, so wow. I could have been taking a hack apparently, but I didn't know this. But yeah, like I've written every single application for every grant we've ever done, including Innovate UK grants from the government. And they are like 20 pages long. And so, yeah, you do have to put a lot of time and commitment into pitching, but you just hope that you can reap the rewards from it. And I wouldn't say lucky, because obviously it's a lot of hard work and determination, but I have been lucky in the sense that we have won quite a few.
Wow. I think that's why it's also so important for people to talk about their journeys, because it sounds like you've learned a lot from people that were a few steps ahead of you. And that's one thing we wanted to do with this podcast, is showcase people's journeys who are currently in the midst of it or the beginning stages. Yeah. So it's really nice to hear that.
I've been able to do the same as well in terms of help, you know, mentor other up and coming businesses about pitching, or, you know, help them with their designs or their business side of things, because I really think it's only when we help each other as businesses that we're gonna see all of us succeed. I've never been one that's like, this is competition. Obviously when it's the actual pitch day, you want to win, but ultimately we're all there to pitch our business and just hope the people on the panel relate to it. So I never go into these things, you know, intending to I don't know, make it too competitive. I always go into these like, okay, well, I'm going to get to meet some other businesses, and if I win, I win. If I don't, then it's their loss.
Also, you've learned something from doing it.
Yeah.
Because you always learn from every experience.
1,000%. Like every single pitch, you obviously get better.
Yeah.
And especially one of the things this year I did was I went all in this year on pitching. I think like May and June I did like 6 pitches.
Whoa.
Just there was so back to back of competitions and pitches, and it worked because we were able to raise quite a bit of funding there. But it was very exhausting. Like I really was like, I remember waking up for one and it was like 7 a.m. or something, and I just woke up like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to go to this? And I did, and then I won it. But I do remember waking up just thinking like, I feel like the Waking Dead right now, because you put yourself through so much to be ready for them.
It's always those moments.
Yeah, it's the same with job interviews. When you can't be bothered doing the job interview, that's the one you get.
Yeah,
literally.
And I think if you start to become too cocky, you'll lose it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say necessarily, I have a lot of self-belief, you know, but I never like, oh, I'm going to win it. I'd never enter thinking I'm going to win it. And often I've done the pitch and I'll walk back from the stage after pitching and sit down. And internally, or to whoever I'm with, I'll be like, that was crap. Ruined it, bombed it. Because you just kind of like, you overthink these things a lot of the time. And so that's why it's also good to have other people there, because often I'll have, you know, someone from the team or a friend with me that'll be like, no, that was really, really good. You smashed it. Like, well done. I'll be like, okay, all right. okay, I can breathe then, because I think the first place your brain goes to is always like,
Yeah, you always.
what did I say, or I forgot to say that,
Yeah.
or blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. So, yeah.
I'm curious, is there a limit to how much funding you're allowed to get in order to keep applying for more of these? You can just go for as many as you want.
I think you've always got to check the individual terms and conditions, obviously, but no, there's no real limits to these things. It's often more of a, how long has your business been going? And often it's, you've got to be in the first 2 or 3 or sometimes 5 years of running the business for a lot of these competitions. The only ones that ever had restrictions were the graduate competitions or the university competitions, where you've got to either be studying or a recent graduate. But yeah, like we've now, I think, won over 10 different business competitions and secured funding from all of them. And a lot of them come with mentoring, or sometimes they come with support or space, or lots of different other things. One came with insurance for a year. Like, there's so many different things that these competitions give you. But the best one is often the network, because money, you can spend it, and in fashion you can spend it fast, you know, with all of the sampling and development, and we've got to order our clothing before we sell it. You spend it fast.
Yeah.
But with the support and the network and the mentoring, like, that is, you know, that doesn't have a metric really. It's totally the thing that can really boost your business. And so I'm massively advocate for finding and building a network of supporters or people that want to support you, because a lot of the biggest opportunities have come from me just not being afraid to say, hi, do you work in this field? Do you know anyone in this field that could help? And kind of kicking down doors.
Yeah, I think you have to do that, don't you?
Yeah.
When you're in the industry. And sorry, just a quick question. You know how you always pitch for awards? Do you ever get like individual investors wanting to invest in you, or do you go out to investors as well?
So all of our funding to date has been equity-free funding.
Wow.
So I, to date, still own 100% of the business.
That's amazing.
And we are going to be going for investment soon. And with that, there is obviously therefore like networks, syndicates, all sorts of things like that you can go for as a business. And, you know, we're personally going to be going more down the angel investment route, because we want to be working with people that care about the social purpose of our business. We're not, often when it goes, you know, the VC route is people that are maybe in tech or that sort of field where it's about scaling it fast and selling it off or things like that. And we want to be working with people that align with the mission, as well as being able to give the money and support that we need to grow the business. But yeah, there is definitely a lot of opportunities in terms of often investors in the room and things like that. And so, you know, it's always great to have them in your back pocket when you need them.
And you know, when you do pitch for an award, and you obviously have like the judge in front of you, do you feel like there's always like a pattern of what they're looking for? So like, do they really resonate with the emotive aspect of it, or?
Yes. Yeah. When you're pitching, I think your story matters more than your figures. Your passion, the reason you do the business, what you've done with the business to date, you know, all of your achievements matter so much more than figures or stats or data. I would say it's only very recently that I've started to actually add any kind of financials into our pitches, because previously, I mean, either we hadn't launched yet, so I didn't have the financials to show, or I just didn't feel they were necessary, because so many people are investing in you, not just your business.
And do you have any tips for people that want to get better at communicating their vision for their business?
Yeah, I think they often tell you to do the grandma-grandpa test. So it's the best test for if you're overcomplicating what you're saying about your business. You've got to imagine if you went to yours or someone else's grandma or grandpa and you were trying to tell them about your business, how would you explain it to them so that they could understand it? Because if you sat there and said, yeah, we do a D2C tech, blah, 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 they're going to have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And I think especially if you come from maybe a specialist background in med or tech or finance, there's so many acronyms that people throw around that the best way is to do the grandma grandpa test, or pull a friend that knows absolutely nothing about your industry or your business and pitch it at them And if they understood and took away from it what you hope, then you're doing it right.
That's such a good
That's
idea.
so good. We need to do that.
Yeah.
Love that. How did winning the 70,000, which is huge and amazing, in the NatWest Accelerator Pitch change things for Intotum, and what does it allow you to do now that I guess you couldn't do before?
Winning that was huge, and it was also the exact moment we needed the money. As I said, have been pitching a lot over the last few years, but I'd really ramped it up because I had big plans for the business. You know, Fashion Week, our new collection, all of these things, and all of these things cost a lot of money. And I really wanted to hold off on going for investment or anything like that because, you know, they're the alternatives really. But I knew what I wanted to achieve. I knew how much it would cost, and I knew I didn't necessarily have that money quite yet. And so I'd done a lot of pitching, but I still wasn't at the figure we necessarily needed. And I obviously applied to the NatWest Accelerator Pitch and just crossed my fingers. And I truly did not expect to hear back from them because, you know, obviously I have won pitches and some of them very big, but the NatWest one, you know, when it's such a huge amount of money, I truly thought, well, every business in the UK is going to be going for this one. Yeah. Everyone's going to be applying for it. And I can't remember the exact number of applicants they had, but I think they said it was something like 900 or something for this kind of competition, which is crazy. And when you think about that, and that the fact they've got to narrow that down to 5 of us to pitch, the odds were not in my favour. But, you know, clearly they saw in my application the passion and the work I've put in. And I really like the fact that it was a video application as well, because I think if you have a chance to pitch, whether by video or in person, it's always going to transfer and come across better than just a written application. Yeah. And it was huge for me. I was, again, so nervous for that day. I genuinely didn't sleep like 2 days before the pitch because I was so nervous. I couldn't eat. I was just stressed thinking about everything. And that pitch, I think, was probably one of my best pitches. Wow. There are, you know, when you just kind of have a moment where you just kind of go, well, I did all I could do. I really did. I fully went for it. And, you know, I'm very proud and pleased that we won and that, you know, they saw how much this matters to me, how much I care about this and the potential of Intotum. But it was definitely one of those moments where I truly felt like this could make us. And I just kind of crossed everything. So I really went into it putting so much prep because I knew how important it could be. Because £70,000 is no small amount of money. It's going to be hugely instrumental for the business because it means that we can invest in sportswear as well. But also it's meant that we could invest into this next collection and do it right and do it properly. And so honestly, like the moment the money hit my bank account, I was like, all right, let's go. Let's go. And so that was great because there is so much you can do with it, so much we can achieve with it, but so much impact we can have. And so the minute the money hit, I saw that figure in my bank account and went, okay, right, that's real. Wow. I basically got straight to work. I literally immediately phoned my manufacturers and said, put the order in.
Wow.
Place the order, we're doing it. Because, you know, I had been umming and ahhing over whether to place the order, to order what we wanted to and what we could do, and trying to cut back on design ideas and things to make it within the budget we had. But as soon as that money hit, I was like, okay, throw the budget to the wind.
It's actually like a lottery moment.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, and it feels like you do the pitch, but you're just doing it because you know you have to, and the money is there in the background, but until you see it, that's probably when you're like, oh, actually, it's real.
I don't think I really processed it till that moment either, because I remember just after winning it, and you know they had cameras in my face, and you know, how do you feel about winning it? And I was like, I don't really know. I don't know yet. It's just happened, and you know, I burst into tears on the stage when they announced that I won, because obviously, quite frankly, when someone comes walking towards you with a giant check that says £70,000, you know, I think it's only natural to cry. And so, you know, that was a huge moment. But yeah, it definitely didn't really hit home until I could actually start putting the money to use.
Yeah.
And, all of the competitions have led into this. Like even the smaller ones where I won £2,000, that money still is £2,000 I can put into making a difference. And so, £20 makes a difference. But yeah, that was definitely, that's the biggest win we've had. And it was one of those moments where you, exactly like a lottery moment of, okay, damn, we can do it all now. We can do it all. And that's definitely kind of the methodology we're taking moving forward, is obviously being strategic with the money, but saying, okay, the big ideas we had, we can press play on.
Yeah. And it gives you even more self-belief as well in everything, and you can see a bigger future, which is really
because
nice.
As I say, with these competitions, it's not just the money, it's the support, and having the backing of NatWest is huge. They're hugely supportive, and they hugely believe in the business. They don't just want to throw some money at me and go, all right, good luck. They want to see me succeed as a business person and Intotum as a business. And so they're already giving me support, giving me advice, trying to connect me with people, because they want Intotum to have the best chance.
Yeah,
of course.
Well deserved.
So we're going to move on to the hot takes now.
Yes.
So this is where we give out a statement, and you can give us your quick take on it, whether you agree, disagree.
Okay.
So the first one is, function should come before fashion.
Yes. I would say it's a balance of both, but I think all of our clothing should serve a purpose.
The fashion industry is finally getting serious about inclusion.
That's a tricky one. The fashion industry is, I think, finally opening its eyes to inclusion. I don't know if we're at the stage of serious about it yet, but we're definitely seeing progress.
Fast fashion and adaptive fashion can't coexist.
I think they can. Whether they should is a different question. I think all clothing should serve a purpose, and Intotum, by its method, isn't fast fashion. But fast fashion and adaptive fashion have and continue to coexist, because ultimately there's always going to be adaptive fashion at every tier of the industry. But we definitely should see more ethical production.
Representation matters more than innovation.
I'm going to have to disagree with that one. I think representation and innovation are both equally important. And when you innovate in a field, ultimately you often progress representation. And so by innovating in clothing, we are also progressing disability representation.
So now we have our listener dilemma.
Okay.
And their question to you is, I've recently had surgery that's made dressing more complicated. I feel like I've lost confidence in my style and my identity. Where should I start when it comes to clothing?
Well, definitely Intotum. But I think when it comes to clothing, you need to always find things that align most with you. And if, on any given day, it is just some comfies, then wear the comfies, and that's fine. You don't have to present yourself in the height of fashion every day. You should always consider your comfort, but then definitely turn to adaptive fashion. So much of the industry, and especially what we're doing at Intotum, is about making it easier to dress. And surgery is such a complicated one, because you need to take the time to recover and really feel more like yourself again. And I know how much of an impact wearing the right clothing can progress that process and progress that healing. And so, yeah, definitely I'd say turn to adaptive clothing and turn to things that make life easier for you. So many pieces are sometimes accidentally adaptive, whether it comes to a wrap piece of clothing or things that have Velcro fastenings or front fastenings are so much easier. Maybe avoid things that you have to pull over your head, because they're a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Great. Well, before we wrap up, we like to ask everyone one question. What do you wish you knew sooner?
I wish I knew sooner how hard building a business would be. I think so many entrepreneurs like to sell that it's all glitz and glamour, and that, you just wake up with an idea one day and someone just gives you a pile of cash and you go, okay, great,
If
here's
only.
my business. And most of us aren't doing that, you know. And so I wish I knew sooner how hard it would be, because I knew it was going to be a labour of love, and I don't regret 1 minute of it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But I wish I knew sooner so that other people can know sooner that you are going to have to dedicate your life to this. You are going to have to make sacrifices and say no to things in the pursuit of your business and your goals. But ultimately, if you care about it enough, it's worth it.
I really like that labour of love. It's a nice way to put it, because it is a bit of labour, but you also bloody love it.
Yeah. Like, you're going to do those like crazy hour weeks. You're going to be working till 3 a.m. You're going to be, you know, I was on holiday on my laptop. It was 4 a.m. trying to sort something because I'm in the wrong time zone. You're going to have those moments, but they are 1,000% worth it, because honestly, like, any amount of lack of sleep is worth it when I receive just even a customer email saying, oh my God, I just received my coat. I love it so much. Thank you. This is the first coat I've been able to put on myself. Like, moments like that make everything worth it.
Yeah, when you know you're making an impact and a
1,000%.
difference.
And do you have anything exciting coming up that people should look out for?
Yes, we have our launch coming up. So we should be launching our new collection at the start of November, which is extremely exciting. We've got whole new pieces coming out, improved pieces. We're doing a bit of workwear for the first time. So yeah, I'm really excited for that one. And hopefully we got some events and things coming up shortly. I really want to bring our community together to kind of rejoice in adaptive fashion. So that's something that's in the planning stages at the moment.
That's really exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really inspiring, and it's a conversation that doesn't often get talked about enough, so it's been great.
Yeah, we feel really lucky to have you on the podcast and hear your story and learn more. And like, I can see you just like making it so far in the future. I can't wait to see everything.
Nice, yeah. Interview me in a few years.
Yeah,
we'll compare.
It's been so nice.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you.
Great.